Choosing new carbon wheel set is an exercise on its own, but if it's your first wheel set of carbon wheels, there are a lot of things to take here into account. When I bought the first carbon wheel set, which was Scopes wheels, I knew almost nothing about it. Time has changed, I figured out some things, and buying the second wheel set was not at all easier than it was at the first time. Rim diameter it's easy, but when it comes internal width, holes and spokes count, as well as profile type, offset, it's just a hell. Oh, and I even forgot to mention amount of hubs you can choose for your custom wheel build. The list continues. In this video we'll figure out about Duke's rims, actually about the whole wheel set as well. Here we have SLS Ultra rim, 28mm internal width, and it weighs 290 grams. But let's not forget that it has some missing carbon pieces. We will cover everything from what I have now from Duke's as well as what has happened here. Currently on the rear it's SLS 3 Ultra jacks. The lightest at the time they had been when I made the purchase. It's 28 internal width diameter with asymmetric profile. It's a pin spoke spray bladed black 2.4 tire mounted on the rim. How much it weighs? The tire of Wolfpack Speed weighs around 650 grams. The rear wheel with XTR cassette plus 160mm rotor and 240 Swiss hubs weighs 1810 grams, which is pretty good weight considering that we have not the lightest tires on the rim as well. And the front also Duke, not Ultra, so it's 6ers rim and it's 30mm internal. Yeah, so it's 1510 grams with 180mm as well as DT Swiss 240 and Garmin speed sensor on the hub. How I decided to go with Duke's wheels, what I like the most in their 2 bike is that you get very clear and straightforward selection of options in their website, so that kind of simplified the choosing process. In the beginning I went with 28 internal width for both front and rear, but about 1 month after, this one backfired at me. It was a nasty crash over the bars thing after the landing. During the drop from the feature, the rim cracked at the landing moment. The air came out from the tire immediately, and then I was coasting towards the fallen tree, which with the empty rim just hit it, and that's the result. Keep in mind that it was the front wheel which normally receives a bit less stress than the rear one. My first impression was that maybe rider and bike weight was too close to the limit and it just backfired at me. For that reason, when I made crash replacement, I chose 30mm internal width. It's no longer Ultra and I decided that better a few grams more, but make sure that it does not happen for me again. A bit of an update. I've been praising those wheels, front 6ers, SLS 3, Lucky Jack, 30mm internal width, worked great for a year. I don't know the reasons, but now it has a massive crack out there throughout the whole width. Thankfully, I noticed it at the right time, not when it was the terminal damage, but before that, so that was good. The reason being, I'm removing the tape in case if you have this type of issue with Duke's wheels. The model and the product code is hidden under the tape. To claim the warranty, you will have to remove it from the wheel. It's strange that the model name is written out there, so I just want to see how that crack looks from the inside. I've been participating in Costa Blanca bike race. A lot of rocks, a lot of stones, but actually I didn't receive or at least noticed any terminal hit, so that's where I was surprised noticing that. So it's not visible through there, it's only from the outside. I am not going to ride it any more longer. And there's another code here. Nonetheless, it will be yet another warranty claim. Probably it will end up not as a warranty claim, but crash replacement for some reduced amount of cost. I wonder, would you reuse the same spokes or not? It's a Pin Black CX or something like that. Pretty great one and it lasted brilliantly. surprisingly the rim is straight without any issues. The problem I have now is that I'm with the luggage, I'm traveling, and I have to do something with it. So I'm going to capture the rim, the coats, and I don't have spokes tensioners. So I will have problems removing hub because I don't want to throw it away. It's good for the spokes. Most likely I'm going to throw them away because I don't have enough spare weight. Nonetheless, Duke's wheels work great, no longer works. However, the rear wheel lasted for a whole season and a half. It's been in many places, as I mentioned in previous videos, and it still works perfectly. My initial impression is that maybe the rim was with some defect once I received it, and then it resulted as it resulted. As we covered all those failures in the first place, now we can go back to fundamental of things. So first, make sure to check the maximum allowed weight for the setup, so don't go around the limit, just leave yourself a bit of a margin, even though, as you can see, I completely survived 1 season and a half on that ultra wheel where my and bike weight as well as the gear is 92-93 kilograms, where it's allowed to go up to 95 kilograms on this rim setup. As you might have guessed it, going ultra light can have consequences for you, so if you want to take that risk, go for it. Otherwise, I would just suggest you to go with the rims which has more maximum allowed weight. Now, in terms of the rim width, I would strongly suggest you to go at the rear with slightly less narrow. 30-28 for my type of riding is perfect, even though the first wheel set I bought from Scope was 24.5 because I didn't know what I was doing. It was fine for marathon races, it was actually very great for marathons, but then it comes to XC, it was not so great. I haven't tried to mount anything more wider than 2.25s. Maybe a bit wider tires could help, but unlikely. Anyways, what I want to show you is the difference of tire width. I'm going to compare 30mm internal width with 2.4 tire, as well as 28 with 2.4 tires. So it's 62.25 on 30mm internal width, so the amount tire volume expands on this type of rim. And here we also have 2.4 tires. They are mounted on 28 internal width diameter, and it's 60.40. That gives us 2mm difference at the amount the tire expands into width. Why that's important, you can go at the same width tires at front and the rear, and the rear will be already a bit smaller. However, I tend to like to mount even less wider tire at the rear, like 0.05 or 0.1 less wider at the rear. That gives even better turns into the corners. If you have an option, just consider buying front wheel 2mm wider and you will see that difference. So now finally, once I covered those topics about Duke's rims, I will be able to throw this away. Important thing to mention is that I chosen one of the most expensive spokes which were available, and it's a Pimp CX Ray Bladed. I can't recommend them enough to apply on your bikes. Of course, maybe others would last as well, but even after such failure, none of them got broken completely, and at the best, at the worst, they were only bent. I can't recommend them enough. Now about the Duke rims itself, if you go to the Duke racing wheels, there are plenty of options, but if we are considering XC version of rims, then they released the new updated version of SLS 4. They are slightly lighter than SLS 3, but they are like 150 euros or even more expensive, so you can choose those by your budget. One other thing which comes into place when we're talking about ultra light wheel sets is that usually they have limited pressure you can put into the tires. Of course, no one goes nowadays 3 bars in those rims, but keep that in mind that, for example, when you are sealing the rims, you should be aware not to put 3 bars, for example, because Dukes are like 2.4, 2.6 at the maximum bars allowed. So if you put more, you can cause micro fractures, and then you might have some other problems. Going a bit farther from the rims itself, we can also touch the topic of hubs. So when I chosen my first wheel set, it was spokes where they have their own hubs. I don't like that idea because when you need to do maintenance for them, You have to figure out what bearings they have. Usually they use some custom free hubs as well, which not always you can find them easily to buy. With spoke wheels, I was not exactly happy about that idea, so for that reason on Duke's wheels I have chosen DT Swiss hubs just to have that reliability. And the scope wheels weighs almost 2 kilograms. Surprisingly, it's almost 200 grams heavier than Ultras on the rears. Was I happy with DT Swiss 240 hubs? At the rear, for some reason, bearings get busted quite fast. You can feel that they are no longer as smooth as they've been in the beginning. Now I just changed them and they are just perfect. The rear DT Swiss uses 1.5 to 6 bearings type, while at the front it's 1.7 something. Front bearings last significantly better, maybe because they are bigger, maybe because they receive less stress, but the front is just perfect. The rear is like 3,000 kilometers or so in varying conditions and they are just busted. During the season I changed the bearings only once, but there was significant difference once I changed them and I went in similar downhill, which I've been doing multiple times, and the difference was just, you can feel that it's going faster, and it's not placebo, it really is. Always make sure to properly maintain your wheel bearings if you want to go fast. And last thing to mention about why it's nicer to have carbon wheels, apart from the fact that they are lighter, they just accelerate faster, and that's the main difference where it comes to performance. If you accelerate faster, you for the same amount of time receive less fatigue, then it compounds during the race distance or just casual riding, and in the end of the day what you could have ridden with this amount of required effort, you need this one with casual aluminum wheels. Trust me, it just makes a difference. Of course it comes with significant price. For literally any bike, if you switch from aluminum heavy wheels to something like half kilogram less in the wheel set, you will see such a huge difference that you would be hardly imagine. Is it placebo or not? You can let me know once you buy. Whether it will be Dukes or not, it doesn't make a difference, but just make sure that you are choosing quality components, and whether you will go with Chinese stuff or not, it's up to you and your budget and the risk you want to take. So with that said, if you have any questions about Duke wheels, let me know in the comments. You can also ask about Scope Wheelset off-road one, which was probably first generation of their wheel sets. Oh, and actually I forgot to mention that with DT Swiss hubs on the rear, I had some sort of issues with the ratchet. I changed 36 to 45. And then it backfired at me really fast. Then I switched back to 36. After multiple months of using, they also failed on me. Then I installed that 54, which was replaced by the warranty. Like few hundred kilometers away, it also broken down. One thing I really know is the moment when 54 brake on me, I was going past the log on the ground, so front was fine. At the same time, I jumped with the rear wheel on the lock, and at the moment when suspension compressed, the ratchet had slipped. So whether I was just unlucky or maybe I did something wrong with the ratchet, I don't really know. I'm not a huge fan of ratchet system itself, but the pole system, which is in Scope wheels, I also bitten quite a lot, so probably when you have too much force in your legs, nothing will help you, or maybe something good.